Hi YouTube, it's Monday, April 1st. Still kind of chilly out there, as you can hear. Got the furnace fired up. Winter time is just hanging on, I guess. But let me show you what I got done. I went ahead and removed this brace I was telling you about. I'm going to show you, if you haven't seen anything like this done before, I'm going to show you how you go about removing panels that are spot welded in when I do the other side. But I'm going to go ahead and do some things to this side first, and I'm going to flip the bed, and we'll do it with the bed upside down. Why not? It's off the truck. That'd be easier to get to. But I did this one right side up. Here's what it looks like. Got some surface rust starting. It's pitted, but it's good and solid, and I believe everything will be good. That right there was a little rotted out. I'll probably cut that little section out, make a little patch panel like right there. I'm not sure if it's rotted, or it might be a little torn from where I was doing some chiseling. Missed the spot weld that I drilled. But I'm going to sandblast all this, like I said, paint it with a 415 paint. The inside, I don't think I have my flashlight in here, so you might not be able to see very well. It's probably kind of dark, but I'd like you to see the inside. No, that's going to be too dark. Yeah, maybe you can see that. I can see it through the screen. But yeah, it's surface rust, but it's not bad. We're going to flip this thing upside down and kind of do a little spot sandblasting. Just hit it in the spots that needs it, what that means. But before I do that, I'm going to make my patch panel right here, weld that in, and then we'll get this thing flipped over, and I probably won't get all that done tonight, but once we get it flipped over, we'll show you how we get that other side off. Stay tuned. Alright, now it's Tuesday afternoon. We got this patch panel made last night. Got most of it welded in. I finished it up, finished grinding down my welds today, and it's pretty decent shape. It's not absolutely perfect. This here needs to be kind of beat back up into shape. We're not going to worry about that until we get the inner panel ready to spot weld back in, or the brace. Just want to show you that patch panel. Next thing for me to do is get this back on the ground and flip it over somehow without hurting these sides. I told you I was going to do a video on how I removed the guard on the other side. This brace right here. As you know, it's spot welded in, so we got to drill those spot welds out. Let's show you. A nice little tool. Some of you may have seen it, some may not. But this is a spot weld drill. Actually, it's missing a tooth, but it still works pretty good with one tooth missing. And you can also remove this from the manual and turn it around. See, it's got teeth on both sides in case you break a tooth or it gets dull. And how it's supposed to work, that pin right there is spring loaded, if you can see me pushing it in and out. And normally, the way it's supposed to work, you take some kind of center punch, good sharp punch. So you can see, here's your spot weld right here. You can see the little circle of rust there. And you try to get in the center of the weld. It's kind of awkward. Let me get over where I can swing the hammer. And you spot it. The way this thing is meant to work, you stick that little needle in that little spot that you did, and you start drilling on it. But you see what it did? It wandered off. That's why I do it this way. I don't go by just the actual punch mark there. I go ahead and drill a small 1/8 inch hole. Actually, this drill is a little bit bigger than an 1/8 inch. It's also a left-hand drill. That's why it's turning backwards. In case somebody knows that, it says I'm running my drill backwards. This is a left-hand drill. The reason I'm using a left-hand drill is it's the only small drill I have that is close to an 1/8 inch that I can find that is sharp enough to drill decent. So you just run it reverse and use a left-hand drill. But normally, the whole purpose of these spot weld drills are to drill away your spot weld on your first top layer, which is the panel you're removing. And that way, you still have a solid surface underneath this when you replace your panel or put your original panel back on, and you can just weld it, fill it back in. But that small of a hole is not that hard to fill, and I have better luck drilling these, using this spot weld drill over here when I drill myself a little pilot hole. So I'm going to go ahead and I don't have it reversed like I'm supposed to. Try it again. That's why I wasn't drilling. Okay, not exactly dead center. This spot weld drill is bigger than the actual spot weld. So now I just stick that pin down in that small hole. Really want to force it too hard. The whole idea is to go through the just one layer so you can pop this loose without drilling all the way through. Sometimes you'll accidentally drill all the way through. It's not the end of the world. You can fill that hole in. I've showed you how to fill in holes. Not sure if that's deep enough or not. We'll take something and try to pop it loose. It's still starting to come loose. Go a little deeper. Sometimes you'll see the panel kind of come up when you finally drill deep enough. And there it goes. See how that popped loose? Now, it's just one. I'm not going to film each and every one of them. I just wanted to show you that to start. And we'll film the actual last one when we break our panel loose. But, as you can see, I'll give you a good close up here. So you can see that part of the... Okay, sorry about that. My camera got kicked off somehow. I must have hit a button. Didn't realize it. But when we got shut off, I was bringing the camera in close to just give you a close-up view of that right there. So you see how it's popped loose. Now, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's one there. I think it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on this side, and even more. I'm not going to count them all from here to about there. So I'm going to get to work drawing all these spot welds loose, and we'll turn the camera on and I'll show you this panel coming off, and we'll see what it looks like under there. One thing I want to add, I kind of hate to do this, as I mentioned before, because there's no visible rust on the outside of this, but this is kind of a good way to get inside there and make sure the inner part of the panel looks good. And if it's got any surface rust like this side, we can go ahead and sandblast it off and treat it with Pour 15 paint. See if I can get a shot of that rust there. See that? Yeah, it's not super deep rust, but it is surface rust that has not been painted, and the reason it doesn't have any paint or primer on it is because it was originally like it. You know, all that gets spot welded together, and then originally the truck was primered and painted. Actually, the underside has nothing but what looks like gray primer. That's from the factory there. In that way, you'll be able to get under there and treat it, and we can weld it back on. I know it seems kind of crazy to break loose some welds and re-weld on a panel that looks fine, but the good thing is we're only going to be welding on this surface, so if we're careful, we're not going to be warping anything or damaging our rust-free panel here. And we don't. The other good thing is it will be treated, covered in paint, which you cannot get to paint when this is all welded together. And hopefully it will last a very long time. Instead of doing all this work to get this truck painted and having this thing looking good, hopefully it's going to turn out good. I'm pretty confident that it will do okay. But to have all that work done and 3 years later start to see those rust bubbles pop out, that's not a good feeling. And it's also kind of expensive. What I'm trying to say is we don't want this to turn into this. Yeah, that's this. Believe it or not, I painted this. This bed was the original one off that truck, and I painted that truck black in, I believe it was 2001 or 2002, and all I had was a couple small bubbles, a little bit more than the bed we're working on now has, that I just repaired, that patch panel on the other side. But that's all it had. And yeah, about 12 years later we had this. Actually 3 or 4 years later, after I painted it, it started bubbling out everywhere, and all I had was a little bit of rust. I think here I made a patch panel, and up here, but I didn't take that guard off like I'm doing this one and get inside there and see what's going on. Even though your metal looked good on the outside, it wasn't on the inside, and probably it was savable if I had just done what I'm doing now. See that? Yeah, I think this side had no rust. That's right. It showed no rust when I painted this. And you can see what happened to it. Okay, we're going to get that guard off, and I'll show you what it looks like under there. Okay, we got one more spot weld to drill. We got all these spot welds out. Look at that. That's about ready to pop out. And we're going to drill this one last one out. If Angel will get her nose out of here. Back up, girl. Back up. Hit the drill a little bit, she'll run off. Almost deep enough, I think. Alright, now after you think I probably need to go a little deeper, it's still held on there. On some of these spot welds aren't exactly perfectly round, so sometimes you don't get all the weld, and you got to get a chisel up in there and kind of get rid of the rest of it. And if you notice on some of these, I don't know if you can see with the camera where it's at, I went all the way through. Actually, I went all the way through on this one, that one, or I think it was this one, yeah. Push all the way out, one in the middle, another one on the far end. And the good thing about doing that is, especially if you're putting the original panel back on, you can stick some bolts in it and use them to realign it and get it pretty much exactly where it was before. Just a handy little tip. But let's see, we don't have much left. This thing should hopefully pop loose. I can get up under here and gently chisel it out of there. And so far we have not hurt our panel any at all. As you can see, it's still welded a little bit on the edge there. Don't know how well you can see it up there again, but yeah, it's bending it right there a little bit where I'm trying to chisel on it. But this surface that matters, it's fine. See how that's kind of, it's being a little stubborn. There's not much holding it. And sometimes you can do this. Yeah, that last one is being stubborn. I really don't want to bend that, start bending into my original body panel, because that's all in good shape, at least on the outside. I'm getting ready to see what it looks like on the inside. Yeah, that was being stubborn. Seems like every time you turn the camera on, nothing goes exactly the way you want it to go. I may end up drilling that one all the way through. There it goes. Pop loose. Just drill out of the way. I lost one of my chisels. It's right there somewhere. Here to get out another one. There we go. It's coming right out. It's pretty nice. I'll tell you what. Yeah, it's good and solid. I don't know how that looks on camera. See some pitted surface rust though that needs to be taken care of and getting out of there. The reason that gets like that doesn't get painted. It's all welded together at the factory, bare metal, and then it gets painted. Let's get this camera off here, and we'll see if we can get a decent view. Get my tripod out of the way. See if we can get a decent view of what it looks like in here. Yeah, see that? See that up in there? It's still solid and thick, but that is pitted. And seeing that makes me think that we did not waste our time by removing this panel on what appeared to be a completely rust-free bed panel on the outer edge, on the outside. If that makes any sense. So you see how it's pitted there? That's still good and thick, but that needs to be sandblasted out of there and painted with that Pour 15 paint. Yeah, see all that? I think that was worth the trouble, and I think if we do that, I'm pretty confident, do that plus sandblast this entire piece, and we're gonna, after we get it painted, the areas that we can't get to painted, we'll spot weld that back in there. And if you're wondering whether I'm going to actually weld over paint, no I won't. What I will do is, I will go ahead and paint everything, at least everything that I'm not going to be able to get to, like I said, and we're going to fit that panel in there. Of course, we're going to have these holes here. And of course, we'll sand the paint off of here before we weld, but even though this area will be painted, we can get it down in there with a little grinder bit. I got some Dremel bits that'll get in there. And, yeah, we'll kind of clean that weld off, or clean that paint off only where we're going to weld. And be very careful and take our time so that hopefully we won't bake too much paint off, not get it too hot. And yeah, that way at least you know, get a lot more protection than you had. But I think it's worth the time to do that. And the only place that we're risking burning any paint off is going to be this surface and the inside surface here, but it's only going to be in spots. We're going to spot weld it, and the rest of it in between will be covered in paint. And of course, this area all here will be should be fine. It won't get hot enough to bake any paint off. Like I said, we'll take our time and try not to get it too hot. But yeah, I think what we're doing here is a lot better than just leaving all that on there and letting it rot out, which I'm pretty sure it would, and it would end up like the other bed I showed you. Okay, that's all for tonight.